Yo, what's up, guys? Great win tonight for the Raptors, winning 123-107, guys. Really solid response for the Raptors after blowing that 18-point lead last night to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Honestly, guys, the Raptors really needed this win tonight, against an undermanned Chicago Bulls team. Chicago had made a bunch of trades during the deadline, of course, and even prior to the deadline. Chicago had traded a bunch of guys like Kobe White. You traded guys like Vucevic, so a couple guys to name there. They traded other guys as well. You had to bring in some newer guys like Yasube and Simmons and Ivy. So there were a lot of guys that Chicago was bringing in that were not knowing each other. Hadn't really played any games with each other yet. Everything was new for this Bulls team. So the Raptors had to take advantage against a team that had no continuity with each other. Everyone was just meeting each other for the first time. So there were a big advantage for the Raptors in this game. There was a big advantage for them to have. And honestly, guys, Raptors did a very good job coming out of this game. You have Brandon Ingram, who absolutely caught fire in the first half, having 22 points in that first half, having 12 in the first quarter. BI was on fire in that first half. He shot 9 of 13 from the field, guys, led the scoring through that first half, did a great job. You had even Murray Boyles, who had 10 points. So I thought Colin Murray Boyles was doing a good job getting down low on the paint, cutting, setting screens. Really liked the game that CMB had tonight, guys, especially in that first half. And then you had guys like Quickly at 7. Jacoby Walter, who starts tonight, had 8 points, so you got some good minutes from him. Sandro Mamu coming off the bench had 8 points as well off the bench in that first half, doing a really good job there, making his shots, driving the lane. So Mamu was really effective tonight in this game. Grady Dick only played 8 minutes in the first half, had no points. Jamal Shead had 7 assists in the first half. So Jamal Shead was doing a great job facilitating the basketball. Even got a bloody block, for God's sakes. How often do we see Jamal Shead getting a block? So that was very rare to see as well. I thought he had a really solid first half, but give the Bulls some credit. They were staying in this game. They were shooting the basketball really well, Chicago. They were shooting the ball at 50% from the field in the first half. You had Simmons, who was making his debut after getting traded from Boston. He had 11 points in the half. He was really solid. Then you have Yasubele, who had 10 points as well, guys. Then you had some contributions by Ivy, who was playing as well in his first game as a Bull since getting traded from Detroit. He had 7 points. Then you had Buzelis, who had 10. That kid's got some hops. He's really talented, this Buzelis, this kid. He can move the ball. He can, off the ball movement's really good. He can shoot the basketball. He can drive the lane. He had a really nice dunk in the first half. So he's a really talented, nice young player, that kid there, But like I said, Chicago had traded a bunch of guys. You acquired another player in Colin Sexton from the Hornets, obviously for a guy like Kobe White. So he wasn't playing in this game today. Another player that Chicago was missing, of course, guys. Then you had Dosunmu, who was another guy who got traded to Minnesota for like 3 or 4 second-round picks. So Chicago was accumulating a crap ton of picks, playing all these new guys together, but they were doing a really good job staying in this game, shooting the basketball well, like I mentioned, giving the Raptors trouble. The Raptors defense was not looking very good at times in this game. It was really frustrating me in the first half to see Chicago keep up with them, continue to make their shots. Raptors had breakdowns defensively at times in that first half. It wasn't really good. Like I said, they shot 50% from the field. Rebounds were pretty much even. Offensive rebounds were the same. Same for assists. Turnovers were pretty much even. Points in the paint were even. Chicago was doing a great job keeping up with the Raptors in that first half. Now, in the second half, I thought the Raptors did a better job, especially in the fourth quarter. The third quarter, they did a good job as well, guys, playing tighter defense on the Bulls. Chicago still was making shots. Raptors did have some breakdowns defensively, but, Brandon Ingram did some good things. He was making his shots, driving the lane, drawing fouls. Sandro Mamu had a couple steals in the second half. He was making some three-pointers. Quickly had made some three-pointers as well, guys. Scotty had a pretty quiet game, only having 13 points tonight, 6 rebounds, 7 assists. Scotty had that really nice underhanded pass to Murray Boyles in the first half there. Scotty's facilitation is obviously fantastic and continues to get better with time, of course, right? But Murray Boyles, he was solid as well this game. Defensively, Raptors really locked it down in that fourth quarter. After Chicago was still keeping up in the third, they were still making shots, getting points in the paint. The Raptors did a great job defensively in that fourth quarter, locking Chicago down, guys, only letting Chicago scored 19 points, guys. Chicago only shot 45% after that. Raptors did a great job tightening up defensively, locking them down, because we've seen the Raptors, 3 of the last 4 games, they've blown massive leads, to New York, Orlando, and obviously last night's game to Minnesota. Of course, they really needed a tight defensive fourth quarter, a fourth quarter where they dominated the game. They were physical, pushing the ball in the fast break, getting stops on defense, and that's exactly what the Raptors did tonight. B.I. finishes off the game with 33 points on 12 of 20 shooting. Very efficient game tonight by Brandon Ingram. The guy here is just a great scorer. When the Raptors are slumping, you got to give him the basketball and let him solve the problems and him make the shots, because we all know what kind of scorer B.I. is mid-range. His three-pointers really coming along. He made 5 3-pointers tonight. Mama made 4. But he specifically, Brandon Ingram, his shooting is getting better. It's been getting a lot better. His durability has obviously been there this season. Obviously knocking on wood, of course. But he has been great this year for the Raptors, guys. Really unfortunate that he was not named an All-Star, because he has been putting up All-Star numbers. 8 games this year with 30-plus points for Brandon Ingram. What can I say about this player? He has been a fantastic addition for this team, guys. Then you had, like I said, Murray Boyle, 17 points, 8 of 9 shooting. Another efficient game by Colin Murray Boyles, getting in the paint. Like I said, had a couple dunks. Obviously, I'm a little bit worried about that thumb of his, but hopefully he is okay, and he's going to have to battle through it, of course. But really love what this kid is doing defensively. Offensively, looks a little bit more confident after that nonsense where he didn't put the ball where he had a wide open lane. He's been being a little bit more aggressive under the net there, taking the shots when he has to, drawing the fouls when he has to. The last few games, you've seen a little bit more of him being aggressive at the net there. So that's what we want to see from the young rookie. That quickly, 24 points. They had some really good shots today, but shooting 9 of 20. Wish he was a little bit more efficient, but I still felt quickly had a decent game today, scoring 24 points. Really good game for Emmanuel tonight, because Jacoby, 12.6 of 9 from the field. Very efficient game as well for Jacoby. I think Jacoby is a really solid young player, really good defensively. Just needs to put on a little bit more muscle. Got muscled a little bit too much last night in the game against Minnesota, but really like how Jacoby is coming along now with Ochai Agbaji leaving for Brooklyn. Of course, he's going to get a lot more minutes for the rest of the season going down to the end of the wire, guys. Then you have Jamal. Didn't do much offensively, only added 1 more assist in the first half, guys. Jamison Battle played 13 minutes, only having 2 points. Grady only playing 11 and 2 points. We'll love to see Grady get more minutes and take advantage of the minutes he gets, but he has not been doing that a lot this year, And obviously there's matchups, of course, that Coach Darko's looking at. Clearly, Grady didn't fit the matchups tonight, and that's why he didn't get a lot of minutes today. But listen, Chicago, they got a lot of changes with their team this year, and especially at the deadline. They had some good performances tonight. Buzelis had 18. Okoro had 10. Smith had 13. Simmons had 22 in his debut for the Bulls. Yasubele had 15. Ivy had 13. So they had some good minutes from guys that are making their debut for the Bulls. But I think the Raptors just locked them down defensively. Them not knowing each other enough. I just think the Raptors really locked it down. They missed some shots, the Bulls, and I felt the Raptors did a great job in that second half, guys, shooting 56% from the field. So the Raptors were doing a great job making the shots. 14 3-pointers, great job from what you did last night. I think they made 15 last night, so doing a great job again tonight, making your shots. 44 rebounds. Chicago had 47, so they offensive rebounded a little bit better as well, having 13 offensive rebounds. Raptors had 35 assists on 49 made field goals, so that's great to see, guys. 12 turnovers. Raptors did a little bit better job tonight taking care of the basketball after having 7 turnovers alone in the fourth quarter last night against the Minnesota Timberwolves. 60 points in the paint. That's great to see. Of course, 20 second chance points for the Raptors. Fantastic as well. And then the Raptors game, of course, fast break. 17 fast break points compared to Chicago 7. That's where you see the Raptors taking advantage, guys. Like I said last night, Minnesota was doing what the Raptors are good at doing, getting stops on defense, pushing the ball forward. The Raptors were able to get back to that game tonight, push the ball forward after getting stops, getting on the fast break and scoring 17 points on the fast break, and then having 22 points off turnovers, guys, off 17 turnovers by Chicago tonight. Great job by the Raptors to take advantage of the turnovers by the Bulls and scoring the baskets that they did. But obviously, guys, the deadline has come and gone as well. Raptors added one more piece to the team. Trades Jackson Davis to the team, making a trade for second-round pick to the Golden State Warriors, of course, guys. Now, look, obviously, it's a bit of an underwhelming trade deadline for the Raptors. Obviously, Jackson Davis is not the guy that us Raptor fans wanted them to go after. There's obviously a lot of questions about Bobby Webster. Does he have the cojones to make the big trade, to make this team better? Of course, we saw a lot of teams in the NBA improve after this trade deadline. Of course, I understand why a lot of Raptor fans are saying you needed to take advantage of this season, because a lot of teams are having a down year. Of course, Raptors have been a top 5 team in the East all season up until this point. We all felt that Bobby Webster should have went out there, got another center, maybe try to dump Jakob Poeltl's contract, do something ballsy, and go out there and try to make a championship-type move or a move that will improve this Raptors team. And Bobby Webster, unfortunately, did not do that. The main priority, clearly, for the Raptors was to get under the luxury tax, which they were successfully doing, and which they did, of course, getting Jackson Davis, of course, 6'9", obviously a little bit undersized, but will definitely help this team. Adds another guy to the bench, of course, adds some depth, obviously, guys coming from the Warriors. I'm sure it will not take much to acclimatize to the Raptors offense, guys, but listen, I get it. It's very frustrating, to see Bobby Webster let this deadline pass and see guys like Zubac go to Indiana, even though Indiana traded a lot of picks for the guy. We obviously saw Davis going to Washington, also Trae Young going to Washington, of course. There are some moves here that a lot of teams got better with, guys, and the Raptors stayed packed, stayed the same. They're hoping to God Jakob Poeltl's back can hold up for the rest of the season. He's been practicing. Hopefully he's back soon. But I totally understand, guys, that there's a lot of question marks regarding Bobby Webster. And a lot of people want him fired if this team here slumps and drops down in the standings, because you got Cleveland right up your ass. Philly's playing LA right now. Obviously Charlotte have won 8 in a row after beating Houston tonight. I'm not saying they're going to catch the Raptors, but these are teams that are taking steps in the right direction. Indiana, obviously not having Halliburton for the year. They're tanking, trying to get a top 5 pick. They will be back next year, of course. The Knicks obviously added Alvarado to their team. There are other teams that got better. Of course, Boston added Vucevic from the Bulls, of course. They traded, Porzingis got traded from Atlanta to Golden State. Atlanta obviously added a guy like Kuminga. So there are a lot of teams that added to their roster and got better. And the Raptors didn't. And I understand why fans are a little bit worried that this team here might slip a little bit, because we have seen the Raptors have too many fourth quarter collapses as of late. It's not good enough. Obviously, we've had some injuries. That's not great as well. But listen, guys, this is the team we're going with now. We got to hope to God that this team here can stay healthy. They hope to God that they can get better defending fourth quarter leads, of course. And hopefully Jakob Poeltl gets back. RJ Barrett can stay healthy. And this team here can push the final stretch of the season, get a top 5 position in the East. Maybe hopefully get a home playoff round. Of course, starting at home, that would be home advantage. That would be great to see as well, guys. But listen, I totally understand the frustration of the Raptors. If they had beaten Minnesota, Orlando, and the Knicks, this would have been a 9-game winning streak for the Raptors. Their second 9-game winning streak of the season, of course. But unfortunately, mental lapses got the better of this team. Blew too many double-digit leads, of course, the last week and a half or so. Hopefully that gets sewn up. Hopefully this team can get healthy, guys. The good win tonight for the Raptors. You got to play Indiana on Sunday. You got a couple days off to rest and relax. This is the team you're going with now. Obviously, RJ Barrett's one of those guys breathing a massive sigh of relief, knowing that he's going to be staying at home for the rest of this season. Of course, who knows what the future holds for him, but I'm sure he's happy now that the deadline has come and gone for the Raptors. Didn't have a great game last night. Obviously, didn't play tonight due to load management, of course, guys, but we'll see how the Raptors do against the Pacers. That should be a win there on Sunday. If they don't win that game there, I'm not going to be happy, and will be another reason why us fans are saying this is why you had to make a move and improve the team, get another big and get a better player in this team. But we'll see what happens, guys. Obviously a very underwhelming trade deadline for the Raptors. A lot of question marks about Bobby Webster and this front office if they have the intentions of making this team a lot better. I totally understand it, guys. Very frustrating to say the least that we did not add a bigger piece of this team like a Sabonis, obviously, or even going for the home run and trying to acquire Giannis Antetokounmpo. Obviously, those things did not happen. Giannis stayed put in Milwaukee, of course. This is the team, guys. We'll see how they do on Sunday. Let's see how the rest of the seasons go. Let's see how this team here can fix their deficiencies in the fourth quarter against the better teams. Obviously, the top 10 teams, the NBA, the Raptors don't have a great record against. They got to get better at that. We'll see how the rest of the season goes, guys. We'll see how they play on Sunday. Thanks for watching as always, guys. Love to hear your content, thoughts on this game tonight, guys, and the trade deadline itself. So click like this video. Subscribe if you guys want to see more content. Go Raptors, go as always, guys. See you guys on the next episode of Raptors Unfiltered. Ciao, guys.